Welcome to Artcasters. This is the show that's usually on Scott Cirkland and myself's channel that we both host. But Scott is out of town, actually in California at Disneyland. And so it's just going to be hosted between myself and Cory Kerr.
Don't start without me, guys.
Scott.
Hey, I got here as fast as I could. Sorry.
All right. So,
all right, if I sit here?
Yeah, I guess so. No, I mean,
it's almost like it's custom set up for me. Like you weren't expecting me, or you were expecting me, but you weren't.
Yeah.
You didn't know I was going to get here. So
It's an old Kemble custom to leave an empty chair for Scott.
Awesome. So, okay, so Scott is clearly in town.
Yes. Yes.
What'd you do?
I went to Disneyland.
All right.
By myself, which is kind of a weird experience, but it was a lot of fun because I got to do everything I wanted to do. Didn't have to worry about people getting tired or not wanting to do what I wanted to do. So yeah, it was kind of a weird experiment, but it was cool. But I think next time I gotta bring my kids along. So
yeah.
But this is kind of like the trial run because I haven't been in like 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I got to see a bunch of stuff that wasn't there 10 years ago.
That's
so
awesome.
It was really cool. I had a blast. So, but I am so tired, and I'm actually, it's hard to believe I'm saying this, but I'm tired of Disneyland right now. I won't be tired like a week from now. I want to go back, but yeah, it was awesome.
That's awesome. That's the best way to do Disneyland.
Yeah.
So, cool. So like for the topic we're going to be talking about, we're going to be working on and talking about our hundreds process because we're at a little bit over the halfway point. And so it's like a really good time to kind of check in on where we're at. And Cory and I also have to do an art check, a 48-hour art check. And so we thought it would be cool to kind of combine the two, use them like Voltron.
Yeah.
And
can I join in on that too? Because I've been on vacation, but I've been doing a little bit of stuff. So.
Of course, yeah. So we'll do a real quick art check just to kind of catch everybody up. And I think that'll segue well into like our main thing. So before we get going, let's let everybody know where to find us. So you're on my channel. So obviously that's one place to find me. And if not, you can check out my autobiographical comic that I handwrite, hand letter, and hand ink about faith and mental illness at quarterlystories.com. Or you can check it out on topis.io by searching for Quarterly Stories there. And then, Scott, where can we find your work?
You can find me at circworks.com. And if you go to circworks.com, you can pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It is free. It's a digital pack with a bunch of digital tools for making comics. And you can print some of the stuff out. And if you want to work traditionally with them too, but it's got brushes, it's got fonts, it's got templates, it's got, what else? There's something else. There's a bunch of stuff in it.
Yeah,
but basically
like
everything.
halftone screens.
Yeah, halftone
like
screens,
awesome
speed lines, all kinds of awesome stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna work on my comic just now, and I was like, I just don't have the money to buy a starter kit, so I don't know if I can get it. But I don't know if I have the money.
Well, you don't need money, Josh, because it is entirely free.
It's free. Are you crazy?
Yeah. All you have to do is join the mailing list, or if you like some people, you can join the mailing list and then you can subscribe and then unsubscribe. I wouldn't recommend that because it makes me feel bad. But
yeah,
some people do that. To me, that's kind of like, I don't know. It's like the people that go to the donation car washes and don't give anything.
Yeah, or like walking into a C's Candy and just taking the free samples and then leaving.
Yeah, but if you do join, but I don't care because those people are missing out because just being joined the mailing list, I also send other like additional free stuff out. Like as soon as I have some more brushes, I'll just give those out through the mailing list. So
awesome.
If you subscribe and unsubscribe, you won't get that stuff. So you won't get the extras. But
awesome.
So yeah.
Cool. So I'm definitely going to subscribe. I think I already did, but if you guys haven't, definitely subscribe and download that, and also just pay attention to the newsletter. Lots of cool hacks and stuff like that come through it. Cory, where can we check out your work?
You can find my work at corykerr.com, and there's a bunch of stuff there. And then if you click on certain links there, it'll take you to videos and my YouTube channel, my Instagram, and Twitter, and whatever else. But just corykerr.com is where I'm at. So.
Sounds great. Yeah, and you can also check out and find Cory every other day on my channel and me every other day on his channel as we do the art check. So how's that for a segue?
Awesome.
So let's do our art check. So basically, if you guys are kind of new to it, the gist of it is we kind of say what we've accomplished on our personal projects. Then we followed up with what our progress is from the last time we kind of set a goal. And then we follow. Oh, sorry, I actually skipped a step. The second one is what struggles we hit when we were trying to accomplish those goals. And then third is what's our goal for the next art check. So I actually totally described that very improperly because Cory's way better at it, but that'll get us into it. So why don't we get into it? Do you want to start off? You've had a really eventful time.
Yeah.
What have you accomplished?
Okay, so accomplished. So
trip?
because I'm on vacation, I had to kind of cheat a little bit. So I
Mhm.
did extra work before, and
Perfect.
and I'm going to have to catch up a little bit now. I don't know if that's in the spirit of the actual, challenge, but I've done it twice already. So
Nice.
give me a little leeway here. Sometimes you need a little vacation. So no, but I got ahead, and I'll kind of show you what I did. I got to the point, all my penciling is done, and I printed them out. And on the next update, you'll see this. But so that is one of, I don't know if you can see that. That's one of the double page spreads that I printed out. And I had to.
Special effects.
And here's the second one.
These are really beautiful in person too. It's funny.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, I knew Josh worked big, but if you don't see his pages in person, you have no idea. It's pretty impressive. So I printed those out. It was a little difficult because I have a large scale printer, but because these are 11 by 17 and because they're full bleed, I couldn't print them on 11 by 17. I had to print them larger and then cut them down.
Crazy.
So I got those done. So I did that. I know I'm running over time.
That's a good hack, though. That's actually a really good tip.
Yeah, right? It's kind of a pain, but as long as you know how to splice stuff, you can do it. You know how to do that. So, And if you don't know how to do it, on my comic book art hack, either the first one or the second one, I show how to do like the splicing pages together. And another thing I did, and I don't know when this video will come out because it's going to require some editing. And these are really rough and they're not totally finished yet. But I don't even know if you'll see them. Yeah, some of them are. Yeah, it's really light right now. I'm gonna have to finish them up. But
lots of sketches.
Yeah. So what I did was I decided we're gonna work on a video. I'll have to put it all together, but I decided it would be cool to go to Disneyland and kind of, because it's a big inspiration for me.
Yeah.
The theming and everything. So I thought I would do a sketch for every land in Disneyland, inspired by every single land. So I did rough. I've got to tighten them up a little bit now because, I didn't want to spend my whole trip just drawing, but I went to every land and sat down for a little bit and just did some rough sketches and I'll finish them up, and through the magic of editing, it'll put it all together and everything for a future. I don't know when I'll put that one out, but it'll be a future video on my channel. So
that's amazing. And you're going to kick yourself because in like a couple months, they're going to open Star Wars Land.
Yeah.
So, it's funny, little like weird, just factoid. Like, so where I work, right behind my work is this place that makes, like, they actually make the mountains and stuff for parks.
Really? Yeah.
So they're building these giant mountains that are obviously going to be in Star Wars Land.
So do they build them off-site and transport them?
Yeah.
Oh,
so they build they're building the frames and stuff out of metal. It's really
you can
interesting.
see some of it, like when you go Big Thunder, you can kind of see some of the stuff. It looks, wow. It looks
so
amazing.
I think
I don't know how they're going to get it done for probably this summer. I'm guessing is when they'll probably open, but sometime this year.
Yeah.
So
it's fascinating and it's fun to look online because you can see like they tried to hide the Millennium Falcon behind like a whole bunch of semi trucks, and then like they're in a circle around it so you can't see it, but there's like satellite images online. So it's like, sorry, you can't put a semi truck.
Well, guess what? I'm guessing it probably looks a lot like the Millennium Falcon. So
I think it kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to whoever that was. Like, found that.
You can't look at it. We don't want you to know what it looks like unless you just go watch the movie because it's going to look exactly like that. So,
So, Cory, what about you? What'd you get done?
Well, I mean, since we met yesterday, not anything yet, but I will be getting some stuff done so far. I did get, if you can see that, I've made some more progress in the stickers. I actually have been a little behind I've been getting one done every day, but I've been cheating a little bit in the last day or two because I've been just taking it from parts of pages that I've inked and coloring them and turning them into stickers, which I think still counts. So that's mainly it. And then my plan was that I was going to get a panel or two done tonight as we talked.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what's going on lately, but it's been, and this will be challenges, but it's been, I haven't been able to get down to my studio until like 10, like almost every night this week, and so I've just gotten super late starts.
Yeah, and for anybody kind of curious, like after this is done, maybe check out the art check we did yesterday, because we were both just beat. And I think we managed to do decent content and stuff, but it is amazing how you hit these kind of points where it's like a slog to just get working. And I definitely relate to that. So actually what I accomplished wasn't all that great either, in the sense of like my comic progress. Although, by the way, the repurposing thing, we got to bring that up as a topic at some point, because I think that's great. Because you should do that with your art. Like my first comic, Numb, a skateboard company actually printed skateboards and then they shrink wrapped them with the comic, and it was a skateboard graphic of that. Like, well, you can kind of see it from here, but it's like a promotional postcard I sent out with it. And they printed that graphic on a skate deck. And it's like, to me, if you can multi-purpose and make that stuff happen. So I got this done, but what's funny is if you saw my check yesterday, I think it looked like it was the same thing. The problem with my inks is I usually have to go over my blacks when I'm working in this style like twice, just so that it'll scan. And it's weird, but it actually takes me less time to do that than clean up kind of faded blacks on that. And I'm kind of anal about, like, I like my originals to have just like crisp, like perfect black. So, but it also makes the cleanup process just like super easy, because now all I have to do is scan it, piece it together, and then it's done.
How do you scan that thing?
So I scan it in
fourths.
Okay. Long ways.
Okay.
And then, it's pretty easy actually. Okay. It takes about like maybe 10, 15 minutes. The only thing that's irritating about that is the scanner. I have like one of those all-in-one units, and that's actually the cheapest way to obtain a large format now. But for some reason, they changed scanners so that they connect end printers, so they only connect through Wi-Fi, which is obnoxious because I have a really weak Wi-Fi. I
have the opposite, where I couldn't figure it. It wouldn't let me hook mine up Wi-Fi. So nice. I had to get a big long cord. You should
be thankful that it has the cord as an option, because it's like it literally, like, every time I want to print something or scan something, I have to log off. Like, I have to re-log in and plug in the Wi-Fi password every time.
Yeah, you can't see it, it's off screen, but Josh's printer is about twice as big as mine, but mine's the all-in-one too. And but nothing else works. The printer doesn't work. Yeah. So I've got a separate printer, but I kept that thing because it's got the large bed, and even though it takes up so much space, like I put it under, like my desk is kind of like an L shape, and in here where nothing is, it's under there. So I kind of got to reach in under the thing and open it up and put the thing in and scan it. But because otherwise it just takes up so much space. Dude. And I don't use the scanner that often. But
well, if there's like a tech savvy person who wants to like custom make like a large format scanner that's small and affordable,
why aren't they? I don't know why that's. Yeah, they just don't make them affordable.
Yeah. And they used to have this one called a Mustech, and I used that forever, and then it didn't actually upgrade with the OS, so it was useless. I had this giant, and the same thing happened to Kevin Cross too, because we had the same brand of scanner. But anyhow, so that's a total diversion from the art check. But so that's pretty much what I got done, and then I'm currently working on like inking this last this panel right here, and then like what Scott was recommending checking out is how you build this. Like, you probably can't even really see the seams, but it's basically like, you divide your page into a bunch of chunks, and then you light box them using an X-Acto knife, and really check out the video because
Yeah.
that's a really good
I think
tip.
that's on the Comic Art Hacks 1.
Yeah.
You just have to. I need to put a playlist for those.
Yeah.
I think because that's probably my most popular video. So
yeah, and that's
it'll probably pop up because I think there's a popular video setting. If you go to my website or something, that'll probably pop up because that's
yeah.
You know.
And it's a really good hack. It's like one of those things I learned from when I worked at an education company. It was like one of my first jobs. And they did a lot of things really old school. Like I was just telling you before we even started recording, they used to have those giant light box tables, you know, because they'd been around that long. And so they had that trick for like comping, you know, like you'd make these massive like game boards and stuff that we're not going to like print in China and then have shipped like 8 weeks later to proof, you know? So anyhow, good art hack. So what were your challenges? I mean, obviously. Yeah,
I'm on vacation, so trying to figure out how. Like I said, I had gone there thinking that I was going to sit down and do a sketch, and it's also because you can't bring in like selfie sticks or anything like that. So trying to figure. I try to do an intro, and first I try to film an intro like in front of the park, and the music's blaring with this copyright, obviously like zippity doo dah. I'm like, this is going to get flagged, so I can't do that. And just finding, I mean, it was so packed. Yeah. I mean, it was probably not as packed as it could be, but I was surprised because I went to this website called isitpacked.com, and it tells you, I think the first day it said, it's packed. And then on the second day it said something like, not too bad, it's busy or something, but it was the same all through Sunday through today. I thought today it said ghost town on this website. It was not a ghost town. I mean, by Disney standard, I figured there'd be a ton of people, but I don't think there was any less people today than there were the 3 previous days. And finding a place to like sit and draw and also film, that was the other problem. Is like I'm trying to hold my camera, balance my sketchbook on my leg and sketch,
and not have a mouse just show up out of nowhere and be like, "What are you doing?"
So I just did a little. So I just did a little bit.
Taking your camera and destroying it.
Yeah, I just did a little bit, and then I'll just do the rest in editing. But
nice.
But anyway, I think it'll be a fun video. So
by LA standards, like my wife and I, we used to live in Long Beach, so we were like, and then at one point in Huntington too, so we were like 10-15 minutes away from Disneyland. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, it kind of made sense, like 1 year for us to have passes and stuff. Yeah. And like you'd go in on like what you're describing probably was a light day for Disneyland.
I'm sure.
It's on a day where it's packed on those sites. It's like you're like a sardine in a sardine can. Like it's like trying to walk Comic-Con. Yeah. Like San Diego Comic-Con, where you have like maybe half a person's width, but which for me is just like horrible experience because I really don't like crowds. Yeah. So anyhow, so that's a little tangent. So what about you, Cory? What were your struggles? I think you kind of touched on them a little bit, and I think they're going to tie into mine as well.
Yeah. Just, like all kinds of crazy stuff. We're a 1-car family. So when, we got to take the car into the shop, I've got to like find somebody to, I don't know, just all kinds of stuff. Like there always just seems to be a couple hours worth of things that I need to do before I can get started lately. And so that's just, more of the same like life stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I think I'm in a kind of similar boat. It's just really busy at my work and doing that thing for the NCS where we went to DreamWorks over the weekend, just like it actually was on Monday, but it just because it was something a little unusual and I have such a packed schedule already, it just kind of pushed everything a little later. And then I'm still kind of trying to play catch up and make up for that time, It's an interesting thing trying to juggle these like personal projects with like also trying to keep a roof over your head,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's but yeah, so cool. So let's get into plans. So what do you think where do you want to be? I mean, obviously you have your drive back. Yeah. But like what are your plans for like the next few days?
Just catch up. Like I think tomorrow the 28th. So last day of the month, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, I believe.
I was planning on launching my Kickstarter around March 1st, but I'm gonna have to push that back probably a couple of weeks. And I don't know if anyone in the chat knows, because most people, I'm losing my voice too because I've been screaming on rides, so that's why I keep going to get water. But so I might not talk as much. But if anyone knows, like, because it seems like everyone kind of launches their Kickstarters on like the 1st of the month, but I'm wondering if the middle of the month is okay. It seems like if you launch on the 15th, it might be okay too, because that's usually a payday for a lot of people. I know they usually want you to, launch around payday. So I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of people launch in the middle of the month, but that probably is going to be what I'm going to have to do, because I said I was going to do March, but I didn't really say when. So, but I got catching up because I want to launch that Kickstarter, and I still got client work and everything, and get back to work on this hundreds project and all that stuff. So
yeah, I think March is great for it too, because you can do like a pun. Marching zombies, March of the.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I usually do March of Robots, but I can't do March of Robots. Yeah. So I just don't have time. I gotta let some things go. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and like the sketches, I was gonna do a zombie sketch for every day of this month, and I got a couple weeks in, and luckily I didn't. That was just kind of my own goal. I didn't put that out there, so no one knows the better. But I mean, I think I've got enough zombie sketches now for rewards, unless the Kickstarter goes crazy and a lot of people want that tier. But I still might do. It's a good promotion, because anytime you post something on Instagram that's tied to the Kickstarter, hopefully it helps promote it. So I'll just have to see. Yeah,
that sounds doable though. But what's interesting is just the juggling you're kind of describing. I think. Like those of you who followed like the 48-hour art check, you might have noticed that like if you've been following it on iTunes, like we haven't been updating as recently. It's because I literally have just a stack that I have to convert to podcasts. So I'm the cause of the delay on that. But it's literally when you're juggling like these, like I don't want to drop the ball on the hundreds thing, because I know like Mike is depending on us to like hit our deadline and stuff like that. And I feel on track with that, but it's like it is interesting when you're juggling a lot, like how sometimes you just kind of have to drop something for like a little bit just to kind of be able to maintain like output, What about you, Cory? Like what's your plans for the next 48 hours?
So this week I want to knock this page out and then start on lettering. And so by Friday, I'd like to get halfway done, I think, is kind of where I'm going. So I'll get like this main character done tonight, I hope. And then I've got 4 main busy panels. And so I'll get main character plus 2 panels, I think, done by Friday.
Nice. So just to clarify though, that's your 4th page?
Yeah, this is the final page for the anthology.
Nice.
But I have been considering getting into some animation again. And I don't want to talk about that too much publicly, but I've got some stuff in the works, and I want to toy with the idea of maybe like running a team on a short film rather than trying to do it myself. And so I'll be doing some research and some things along those lines as well. But yeah, I should be done with the anthology pages this week, and then the like lettering and cleanup and scanning and stuff. I'm hoping I'll knock that out early next week. And then I can just kind of play around a little. That'll free me up for a few other projects that I've got kind of in the wings.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, so my goal, let's see, in the next 48 hours, I'd like to finish up. This is so funny. I was inking and I just noticed a magnet poetry just fell from up there. Anyhow, my goal would be to try to be at least 1 panel away from finished on page 3 for the Dragon Learns to Share story for the Hundreds anthology. And then I will have an inked, I should have this page of quarterly stories like scanned and up on the site. And then preferably have like thumbnails and stuff for, as well. So I can't really read the chats too well from here.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to check in with people
Can
in
Cory
the chat.
see?
So Mitchell is asking if somebody wanted to help support Scott's Kickstarter, where can I find that link? I assume the best place to go would be on your email list, right?
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. The email list, I'll definitely be promoting it there. I'm going to reroute right now. youngandthedead.com. It routes to my old Kickstarter. Once I start getting everything set up, that URL will take you to the new Kickstarter. But it's not going to be live until probably middle of next month. But I appreciate the inquiry about supporting it. So. But yeah, just my mailing list. If you follow me on YouTube, I will be promoting it. So I will be giving that link out. But it will be youngandthedead.com will be when it is live, that'll be the place that'll take you to it.
And are you going to have like early bird reward tiers?
Yeah, I did that last time. I'll probably do that again. I forgot I think last time I had like 10. So at least probably 10 early bird rewards. I'm not sure exactly what that'll be. Last time, I think it might be the same, where it'll be like a color sketch card, like a trading card size sketch card of a zombie of some sort, color. So that's
it'll be worth getting in early as early as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds cool.
That's really exciting, man.
And then Squatchy Inc. was saying if you're launching in March, everybody's getting their taxes back, and so that seems like a good time to go.
Let me just chime in on that and say not everybody's getting their taxes back. If you freelanced this last year, you might be pleasantly surprised at how bad that tax cut was for contractors.
I'm so worried about this past year.
I just sent out all my paperwork, and I'm just like clenching my teeth because my tax guy, like, he sent me a form of like all the stuff that's changing, and it pretty much is like screws contractors, like everything on the list. So be careful if you guys have done contract work. You don't want to avoid taxes on it, because then you're risking auditing, which I've had maybe 2 people I know who do art have happen, and it's not a pleasant experience. So just but also, like, don't count too much on this being a low tax year. Anyhow, sorry.
And I can't even file taxes because my son doesn't have a social security number yet, and you can't get that until you get this other thing, and you can't get this other thing until you get this other thing. So I get to do the deferment forever until the state gets back to me.
Yeah, and then you have to pay that, like, it's like a slap on the wrist fee, but it still sucks. It sucks. Like, there's fees for everything. Like, if you don't pay your estimate, there's like a fee, which I always pay every year because I never pay my estimates because it just fluctuates too much to really trust my estimate.
Yeah. I know I'm sure I get fees for that, but it just kind of gets worked into everything else. So I don't know what those fees are.
Yeah. But anyhow, so we should have like a tax guy on Artcasters one of these days. Maybe we can convince one of our guys.
We were talking about doing a show whether we have a tax guy or just talk about what we know, because it might be more than what some people watching, if they're looking to get into freelance, might. Maybe
April would be an appropriate time, like when we all see how bad we got screwed.
I don't know how I'm doing, because it's weird because like last year I made probably the most I've ever made, because I had a lot of freelance work, plus I had a full-time job. Next year is going to be different because I don't have that full-time job anymore, and I lost about half my income. But so I'm hoping that full-time job will sort of offset it. Yeah. Everything else. And I had a lot of write-offs because pretty much everything I made last year from my business went back into the business. So hopefully, I'll have to see. And I paid a little bit in my quarterlies, but probably not enough. So we'll see. I'm nervous.
Yeah, little is better than nothing. So which is where I okay, so yeah, so why don't we kind of dip into the topic a little bit? Unless, was there anything else interesting in the chat so far, or did we kind of cover everything?
No, just that's pretty much it.
All right, so let's talk about, like, we're kind of at the halfway point of this crazy challenge, and it's obviously like a lot of us have done the hundreds before, so we're kind of familiar with this like halfway point, and I would say there's almost like a halfway slump. Like, to me, that's where I feel physically like I'm exhausted. And I've noticed every time I've done the hundreds, it's usually like right after you get over the halfway point where you're just like, kind of hanging by your fingernails a little bit. And so yeah, so like I want to kind of touch on, just like touch base with everybody, because we started off, with Cory and addressing just kind of like what we were planning on doing, how we were kind of coming up with our concepts, stuff like that. Now we're at that stage where we have all the previs worked out and we're executing it. So I just kind of wanted to do like a go around and just kind of talk about where we're at on our comics. Are we where we want to be? And particularly for the hundreds anthology. And then like did all the previs work? Did anything change from like the first time we kind of talked about it, and so on? So anyone want to kind of kick that off?
Sure, I can jump in. So I am, what you're seeing here is my fourth and final page. I did them out of order, so this is the third page of the story. And as far as things changing, I mean, I had written the script after I came up with this kind of like giant idea, and I dove into a bunch of research, and like I normally do, because I'm an idiot. It's this giant hundreds of page epic, world building thing, and so I scaled that back quite a bit, and I think it actually became something that makes sense. I can't remember what I had when I came on the show, if I had sketches or anything at that point. I can't remember exactly what was going on, but yeah, I'm not where I thought I would be, but I'm gonna finish, a month early. And I probably would have finished way earlier than that had I not kind of gotten talked into doing the sticker stint again. Ironically, the person who talked me into it, who wanted to do it with me, is one of the people that has bailed, and I haven't seen anything from them. But I'm really glad I did it, because actually there's been a lot of really cool, people that I've gotten to know a little bit better through doing it, who have done it. And they're producing some really cool stuff. And so I'm glad I did that. But it was just kind of ironic that the guy who was like, "Hey, let's do another one of these," I was thinking to myself, well, you didn't do the first one, and you said you would, but yeah, let's do it. And so then he bailed on it. I don't even think he did one. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even think he got started. But a lot of other people have. So that slowed me down a bit. But yeah, I think, my main challenge was that I was going to compress the story so much that I had to do kind of like Guy Ritchie style kind of montages instead of like the normal storytelling where I do like play-by-play stuff.
Yeah.
And I was a little worried about how I would be able to translate that kind of film language into still images. And I don't know. I guess the readers can decide whether I did that well, but I'm pretty happy with the pages I've done so far. I feel like I'm able to cover story in a way that doesn't like gloss over anything and is interesting, but also like leaps and bounds kind of covers stuff in more of a montage fashion than like a play-by-play, which is a style of comics I haven't done before. And so I'm kind of excited that, I was kind of playing with that. And I've done like a lot of experimental stuff that I haven't tried before on this. And we were talking about that last night.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just because like, it's a 4-page story. So if I like royally screw it up, it's not the end of the world. I can just redo that page or try something else, or, worst case scenario, it's not the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of freedom to do something so small. At first, I was really worried about it because I'm not good at being succinct, as is obvious with me rambling on right now. But yeah, I'm happy with it. I like this kind of compressed storytelling, this kind of little moments rather than this giant epic thing that I've been doing forever.
Yeah, I think there's something really cool about doing stuff for anthologies. Like the first anthology I ever did anything for was like I Saw You Missed Connections, which was like a Julia Wirtz kind of thing. And I like had been introduced to her through another cartoonist or something like that, and she was putting it together, and I feel pretty fortunate to be in it because there's a lot of like heavy hitters in it. But I remember after finishing it, because it was like 2 pages, and just getting this like total kick out of it, and then doing like 3 other anthologies just because I was like, there's something really cool about it's very like one and done. It's not quite as labor intensive as like having to finish, like Young and the Dead, like you just wrapped up, so it's like you end up with a story that's finished without having to kind of put in like 24 pages. And sometimes it's it is surprising how like condensing it, but that freaks me out. And that was probably one of my biggest worries going into this, was like trying to kind of condense a whole story into 4 pages, because that's that's a small window to try to tell a story,
Yeah. I thought mine was going to be 6, so I had to. But it's you figure it out, and like Cory was saying, I mean, it ended up. I think I like the pacing and everything, Yeah. So.
Oh, by the way, if you hear like coughing going on, like, so my son's had to stay home sick, but he's not. Don't worry, he's not. You're not going to catch it.
Right.
It's past that point, but yeah. So he's been sick for the last few days. Yeah. So let's see. So how do you feel about like your progress and stuff, and like compared to how you envisioned it at first? Has anything changed?
Yeah. I in some ways I think I'm further behind than I wanted to be. Because I don't know, I kind of thought 4 pages, this will be done, and then I'll have plenty of time to spare. But I decided to kind of spend a little more time and do a little more experimenting on, since it was only 4 pages, just doing some things that I haven't done before. The main thing being to do my pencils digitally, which I'm really happy I kind of did that, because now I feel like I can do digital penciling, where the last 2 issues of Young and the Dead, I said I was going to do that, and I think maybe the first page or the first panel I started, I'm like, nuts to this, and I just stopped. So yeah. But no, I mean, it's now I feel more comfortable doing it. In fact, even like my freelance stuff, like I've been doing digitally, it's saving me some time. So but the hard part's done, now the fun part for me, the inking, and I'm going to do more experimenting with the inking and stuff like that. And, do some of the stuff that Josh does, where, I've done the lettering digitally and then I printed it out. So I'm going to hand letter over that as a guide. And, the whole thing is going to be, at this point is going to be all traditionally. The artwork is what you're going to see is traditional, and they'll scan it in and it'll be ready. So yeah, I think the hard part, the laborious part, I think, is the penciling, because planning everything out and all that. That's done now. It's kind of the fun part for me.
Yeah.
The only thing is I also have to do the cover, which I haven't given even a second thought to. I have no idea what I'm going to do for the cover or anything like that. So that's going to be another challenge. So hopefully the inking will go a lot smoother, so that I'll have more time to kind of figure out what to do with the cover and all that kind of stuff. So if you guys have any suggestions, not that I may not do them, but if you have suggestions, what you think might look cool for the cover, let me know. And if I like any of those, maybe I'll do something, but I don't know. I'm still thinking.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of curious, because it's like, I think we talked about this before, but it's like you get the opportunity to kind of set the direction that all the future anthologies are going to take. Because if you kind of pair it so that it's kind of similar in design
Right.
to what Kevin set up,
Yeah.
then it's going to feel like a series, and it's got that coherence of like, you know, you've got book 1, you've got book
Right.
2, they kind of feel like a family. But then you could also go an alternate route where you just make it entirely something new.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, that's going to really set the precedent for like anything after this for these anthologies, if there are other ones.
Yeah, I
Like,
think of it in terms of like bands. Like
yeah,
if you know somebody like say Yes or Asia or Iron Maiden, they have a certain feel to their album covers, and if they broke that, it would seem weird, you know. But and then sometimes, you know, a band wants to do a whole different. They want to reinvent themselves, so they, you know, sometimes from album to album, it totally doesn't even look like the same, you know, same group, but that's by design. So it's kind of, you know, I don't know, but I think I'm going to do a little bit of both. I mean, the one thing I want to do for sure is like on the what's the term, is it binding?
The spine?
The spine, yes. So I want to keep that pretty much like the other ones, so that when if you put them on a shelf, they look like they go together.
nice. So at least they align.
Yeah. So and then hopefully once I establish that, everyone else will kind of keep that template going forward, assuming we do more of these. But I'm not sure how close, you know, I'll stick to what Kevin did or not. I mean, I'm a big fan of limited color palette. He used basically 2 colors, so I might do that too, but not the same 2 colors, obviously. And I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, I haven't really given it much thought, but I definitely want to keep some of the graphic design elements intact, so they look like they're, you know, they look good next to each other.
Yeah, and thinking like just seeing, it is interesting to me that these are digital, because those pencils do not look digital. Like they actually look very like traditional, scanned in. I mean, I wouldn't know, which is really pretty amazing, and it makes me want to play with that program.
It is amazing. Yeah, it is amazing that what you can do digitally. I mean, it's just, I'm digging it. So,
What program did you pencil those in?
Clip Studio Paint.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I would recommend, especially if you see, who was it was it you? I don't know who I was talking to, but they said that, I'm trying to remember now who it was. Anyway, I was talking to somebody via online, and they said that they had, you know, it was Gazbot, I think.
Yeah.
But he said that, you know, he had been working in Photoshop, so he kind of, you know, figured out how to do comics in Photoshop. So for him, switching it didn't make much sense. But I think if he would have started in Clip Studio and tried to go to Photoshop, there's no way, because Clip Studio is designed for making comics, and there's so much cool stuff you can do with it. And the brush engine works way better than anything, you know, Photoshop can do, in my opinion. So I'm glad I didn't kind of start in Photoshop as far as sketching and stuff. So that way, you know, I wouldn't have that, you know, kind of like transition to make. It was just straight from, you know, traditional to digital, not any other or traditional to Clip Studio, rather than going to Photoshop and then trying to move over. So yeah, and there's still so much stuff I don't know, and there's a lot. I know there's all kinds of other cool tricks and things, but I got to play around with perspective rulers and just tons of stuff. And, you know, a lot of it's my kind of, you know, some of the stuff I learned from videos, some of it I kind of invented myself, and I don't know if exactly, because I know, like, for instance, in Clip Studio, there's a blue line layer, but I didn't like that tone of blue. So I just did a thing where I just made all my pencils the color blue I wanted.
Okay.
And then another thing I kind of had to figure out how to do is, because when you do your borders, it automatically defaults to black, but I didn't want to have black borders because I wanted to do that traditionally.
Got it.
So I had to go back in each panel, and I had to go and enter the hex code for the blue I wanted.
Oh, nice.
So it took a little while longer, which, you know, in the future, like if I was going to do next, when I do, you know, like Young and the Dead, I may just do, you know, because that's more efficiency, getting things done.
Yeah.
This is more my experiment. So
yeah.
So then I'll probably just keep the borders black and do a lot more of that stuff, you know, and print it out that way. So we'll see. Plus I gotta kind of keep like, and that stuff with the lettering, the sound effects is all digital. So if I just do it there and print it out like in black, then, you know, So yeah, I mean, but it's cool, man. I'm digging it. I'm having fun.
Yeah, and I can see why. I mean, you guys will obviously get a better picture of this on Scott's other videos, I'm sure. But like just from looking at it, it looks like all the groundwork's there. It looks really structurally worked
Well,
out.
I wanted that because that's the way I used to work. And when I ink, it's just a matter of pretty much going over it. There's no guesswork. Whereas like with Young and the Dead, it's very loose pencils. So it's like I'm kind of finding my lines when I do the ink.
Yeah.
But this one I want it to be exactly what it's supposed to be. So there's no guesswork at all.
Yeah.
So so I went pretty tight on my pencils, and it's just a matter of like kind of tracing. Of course, there'll be some, line weights and stuff here that you don't see as much, the pencils, but for the most part, everything's there. So there's not a whole lot of guesswork. The guesswork's going to come in when I start doing like effects. Like I want to try some splatter effects and things like that, and some stuff with my white paint and stuff like that. So
that's cool. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I find that like the previs stuff is like so helpful because you're basically working out everything so that there's less guesswork at the end. And I think we're all at a point where had we not put in that early work, that maybe we're not, I think all of us are a little, like I thought I would be kind of done by now. And so I am behind where I expected, but at the same time, because I've done all the previs work, I'm not like super nervous about hitting the mark, because it's like at this point, a lot of it is just kind of plug and play. Because like all that previs work's done.
Yeah, but you're also doing your comic as you're doing this, whereas I wrapped up mine.
Yeah.
So the only comic art I'm doing right now is this project, and I assume that's the same for Cory too. So
well, Cory took on the sticker stuff, which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, not that I don't have other other projects
Mm-hmm.
going on. I've got tons of other stuff, but I don't have any other comic book stuff really.
Yeah, this is the only comic book thing I'm doing right now. So yeah, I've got a little animation that I'm working on and some sticker stint stuff, but I'm not doing 2 comics.
Yeah, it's fun though. I kind of like the alternating. I'm glad I was at a point in Quarterly Stories where it wasn't my rendery style. So because I'm doing the one for this in more of my rendery style, it's a little bit cleaner, I think, and simpler than, but it's very similar to the main style that I use for like the adult chapters of my comics. So I'm glad that I was on one of my kid chapters, because there's this fun alternation of styles, so it doesn't feel overkill. I think if it were, working on 2 comics within the same style, it would be really difficult to sustain. So that was kind of neat how that worked out. Because like I said, if everything were like super hatched, like what I'm doing, I think it would just get kind of hard to do. So like what I found changed a little bit is I actually I had like a pretty clear vision of it, but I am surprised at how much I liked this story. Because I felt at first like it was just way too simple. And the more I'm doing it, I really dig it. And then there's been these fun points where it's like because I write, pretty serious autobio stuff. Like even this silly page has like a bunch of language in it. So it's like I can't like show my kid like, hey, this is a story of when I learned the F word. Like that's not something a 5-year-old needs to hear. But what's fun is with the dragon story, because it's so simple and it is for kids, it's kind of from that perspective. It's like I've been kind of showing and reading my son the pages as I've gotten done. And so he gets all geeked out by it. And he's actually walked up. It's the first time when I've been working on comics where he'll walk up to a blank panel and be like, you need to draw the next panel. Like you didn't finish it, And that's kind of been a cool thing that I was a little surprised by, was that it's something I can kind of share with my kid and actually have fun with, like, and actually the story's grown on me a little bit, even though it's super simple. Although I have to admit, when I see both of your super ambitious pages and ambitious layouts, I'm like a little jealous.
I don't know, Josh. I mean, pretty impressed by what I'm looking at. So.
Well, because you're still doing, I think it's a different challenge because a lot of yours is kind of this macro, like ground level stuff, and that's like a whole different that's a whole different ball of wax. So I've been enjoying that because I don't know, I don't even know how much you've been thinking about that or if it just comes naturally, but like, I mean, it feels like the camera's on the ground, you know, it feels like, you know, we're looking at toys, you know, it's got that, you know, that kind of Joe the Barbarian or Toy Story kind of angles and feel to it. So that, I mean, that's been fun, and that's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and it's like I think I've gotten kind of okay at that by accident because I just do so much slice of life stuff. So a lot of the time, it's like the challenge with doing like slice of life is like I have like a 10-page conversation between two people. How do I make it interesting? You know,
Right.
and you know, it's like how do I make this moment seem like action even if it's not. If there's not really a lot of action or it's, you know, in kind of a normal setting.
Yeah.
So like that, I think it has become a little intuitive because it's something I've done for so long, you know, but I think I would have a hard pressed time doing like a straight up action comic. Although one of my daydreams, maybe I keep trying to figure out what my between project is going to be because I want to do a different comic, even if it's a short one-off or something.
I think you want to do an animated short film, right?
I might. But like one of my thoughts was like I love like you've done videos on this of like superheroes you invented as a kid.
Oh yeah.
And I still think like this is something I've been wanting to see someone do. And I know there's like Axe Cop, which is kind of like written by a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think it would be funny to take like an old comic that you wrote in 7th grade. I have a whole bunch of them, and just do it like authentically, but don't change any of the dialogue, any of the panel choices. Just draw them with like every bit of skill you wish you had at that time. I think that would be hilarious. Like even the costumes have to stay the same and stuff, you know, but it's like, just draw it well. I think that would be hilarious. So that's a potential side project, which might be easy because I think my comics at the time were like 10 pages, you know, on lined paper that I stapled together. And
do you have to include all the misspellings?
Oh, I should. I think that would be hilarious, right?
My spelling is so bad. Like if it wasn't for now that spell check and everything, it's helped me out so much. But I look back at some of those comics I made as a kid. I'm like, what? How did I spell it like that?
I think it would be I don't know. I think it would be a fun little like between stint. So maybe you guys can join me on it and do that with like maybe we could do a little anthology ourselves of like people doing their childhood comics seriously.
That would be cool.
You know, I don't know. I think it would be funny.
I don't have any of those. I didn't start drawing comics until I was 32.
When you were like 5, you didn't like draw like a children's book or like a little story?
Honestly, when I was 6 and 7, I drew a lot of bikini girls, but that was about it.
So that's it. Then you just like if we assemble this thing, then you just do a pinup.
Just do a bunch of pinups. Oh, that's funny.
I like it. Yeah. So that's been like, to me, the curveball of it is just kind of like I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would because the part of me that wants to stay focused on big projects was like, oh, another small you know. But the other thing that makes me really pumped about it is like, have you guys have been paying attention to what people are posting?
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. Yeah. Like there's some really good, just like variety but like I see a lot of people bringing like crazy A game to like the way they're executing these things. And it makes me excited about kind of having, you know, decided to join it. Cause it's like, it's fun. I mean, it's a good group of people. You know, I can't envision it being like a bad anthology, I think it's going to be pretty impressive, you know?
Yeah, if I can ever get out from under the current financial thing I'm in, I've actually got a couple pages I've got earmarked that I'm going to see if the guys will sell to me, which is high praise because I don't buy a ton of art.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's been some rad stuff where I'm like, dude, I want that page.
That is another like secret goal of mine, is at some point I want to own a page by every friend of mine who's an artist that I admire. And that's something I think I need to more proactively try to negotiate and just be like, let's swap pages.
Yeah.
Because that's always another version of that, is like we could just kind of do a trade, get trading going on.
Yeah.
Some
yeah, that'd be cool.
But yeah, so what have been, I guess we've kind of touched on it, but like, have you guys faced any like crazy challenges doing this? Like Cory, and Scott, you guys are both doing really dynamic paneling and kind of unconventional paneling.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of curious, like, was that like once you kind of made that step, did you end up kind of opening Pandora's box a little bit with the previs?
Yeah, I'm always concerned that I just hope it reads right. I really try to pay attention because sometimes, like, especially if I'm working quickly, I don't always, there's certain things that I should be doing that I'm not, as far as the, direction, where the eye line is going and everything. So I try to think about that, but I don't know if I've done anything totally unconventional, but I'm still trying to, kind of stretch the boundaries a little bit. Just where scenes where a lot of different things are going on with this one in particular here, with all the little vignettes and things like that. So hopefully that comes across. And of course there's not a lot of words because of the copyrighted lyrics. And I know Mike Emirates had, he sent me a message asking if I ever thought, he sent me an article on licensing lyrics for small projects. It was interesting, but I didn't really account for that, for one, and I still can't imagine it would be affordable to copyright to license a police song.
No.
But so I'm just going to keep going the route that I'm doing, because I kind of like, the idea of trying to figure out. Plus, if I added the lyrics, I think it would be very, it would just be, what's the term I'm looking for? Starts with the EX.
Exposition?
Yes, too much exposition, because, I basically be saying, showing exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And it might be like one of those things like, meanwhile, Aquaman uses his powers to summon the fish, and then you see the Aquaman summon the powers of the fish and all that stuff. So I don't want it to be like that. So I'm probably just going to keep going forward, but it would be kind of cool. But I think if, the lyrics are online, so if anyone, is curious, they can always go, and it's almost like, it almost makes it make more sense. Like I always like when I'm listening to song lyrics, if I don't quite, I try to figure out what I think it means. And then sometimes I'll go and search the song meaning, and it's something totally different, but that's always interesting. So that's kind of maybe a little puzzle too for people reading it, if they want to go look up the lyrics and kind of put it together. But
yeah, I think it's good too, because you're assuming the best of your audience. And I think sometimes like we can kind of be a little too on the nose with things. And this is actually something I try to be aware of, like with my graphic novel, because I realize like a lot of the temptation, and frankly, like a lot of my comic, is going to be showing exactly what's happening. But Cory and I have kind of talked about this a lot when we did that whole thing on like kind of comic framing. But like sometimes, like if you're showing like an argument or something, showing somebody's hands washing dishes, or like showing like a fly on the wall, or doing what Cory's doing with your short story, where for this anthology, where it's like you're starting on like a bug that's on a cup, you know, and it's like sometimes in a weird way it's weird because it serves two purposes. I mean, like for one thing, you're actually saving yourself a lot of work as an artist because you're not having to like redraw like a million times the same room from different angles. But actually, you're also making it a stronger, like emotional read, and you're assuming more of the audience. Like the audience will get that, like, you know, this isn't about a fly on a wall, you know.
Right.
They can figure that out. And I think like when you do that, like I'm thinking about the aha moment when people are like watching this and they're kind of following the narrative because it is reading without words. But the second they have that aha moment of like, oh, it's the police, you know, like that to me is like a real cool moment that you don't want to deprive people of, you know, where it's just like, this is the police. Like, so I think that might actually serve you better. Also, what you were talking about with licensing, it's something I've tried to explain to a lot of people. I've had to send a lot of emails because I did this design a long time ago of I've just seen a face by the Beatles as just type. And it's like a weird kind of flow chart of the song where it actually loops around on the chorus. It was like a real fun, like type challenge. But that's something I got hired to do by somebody who had the Beatles license and they never actually created it. And so I put it on my website because it was like something I got hired to do, but I can't sell it. And I've been asked by multiple people like, oh, is there a place I can buy this and stuff? And I have to constantly kind of explain, like, I can't just sell like Beatles songs, you know, like literally like they're super litigious. So like, I wouldn't even toy with that beast, you know, of licensing and stuff. Anyhow. So yeah. What about you? What about you, Cory? Have there been like, you've chosen some kind of unconventional paneling? By unconventional, I just mean it's not like in a really obvious grid. Like there's a grid, but it's a little more subtle, and you're doing a lot of like splash pages with like design elements throughout it and stuff. Has that been like? Has that been harder? Has that led to kind of some surprises? Has like how has that been kind of? I guess?
Yeah, I think like when like this page, for example, I was trying to figure out like, you know, because I'm doing kind of a riff on Moby Dick and like classical Greek mythology mixed in with a bunch of like cryptids from like different cultures and stuff. And so I think like the hero's journey and a lot of that stuff, you know, I want to work that in as kind of like nods to those genres. And I don't know if you call that a genre, but like the challenge is, you know, like if you were to do the Odyssey or the Iliad, that is a very long book, you know? So I kind of had to solve these problems the way that I did, or some way, because I couldn't tell it like traditionally. Like I can't just do like a 9-panel grid, you know, or a 6-panel grid or something, because I had too much going on. And so I had to kind of figure out like, how can I speed up time? You know, how can I kind of like make this read as if you're like hearing like a musical montage as you're kind of flying past it, or like one of those scenes, you know, in like Ant-Man where the dude is like telling the story and he's voicing all of the characters, you know, because like that's kind of like what it is. And so the challenge isn't necessarily that I'm using like interesting, you know, or non-traditional panel layout, as much as it is like that's the solution to the challenge.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got there, where I was like, oh, finally, like I can use the foam of the water, you know, as panel borders, and that'll help, because that was actually a comment. It's either Gaz or Mike. I think it might have been Mike Emirates who I was talking about this, and he was like, oh, and since it's like a seafaring tale, you know, you could play at the water. And I was like, dude, I could play at the water. And so I don't know that the paneling was that much of a challenge as much as it was like a solution. Because like once, I'm sure you guys have had that moment, and like most artists will have that moment where you're kind of pushing on a problem and you're struggling with it and you're thinking about it and you're sketching it and you're really just kind of like beating your head against a wall, and then all of a sudden the penny drops and like everything in your mind comes together. And it doesn't always happen like that, but like that's kind of what happened with this. Is I was like, had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to cover. Because like, I mean, on the page I'm doing right now, I mean, I have them fighting like a giant squid. I have them fighting the kind of turtle water monsters, the Japanese turtle water monsters, a huge like sea serpent, this kind of like mystic clam, and each one of these is a big battle that leads up to them fighting Neptune's wife, and riding on her chariot of sea creatures and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's like 1 to 3 issues of most comics. Just talking about like, all these like boss battles leading up to this major whatever. And so I just had that moment where I was like, oh, and I just saw it like laid out, like kind of in this Z pattern. A lot like, I don't know, I'm kind of weird, but like as a kid, I would watch like the waves roll in on the coast. And it was always interesting to me to see like how the foam would come in and be followed by the water, and like the patterns that they would make as they receded and stuff like that. And I've always kind of like tried to pay attention to like the patterns of things. When I was doing like the Tongue Cut Sparrow book, the penny dropping moment for me was like, once I recognized that like nature grows leaves in patterns. And so as long as I could like figure out 3 or 4 different like leaf patterns, then I could just like do foliage without penciling it. And so this one kind of came together when I remembered like, oh yeah, I remember how, waves lapping on the shore look. And I could probably break that up into like panel things or whatever. So anyway, yeah, like so I don't know that it was that much of a challenge as much as it was like a relief. Like I was like struggling with it, and I was kind of bummed. And I remember talking to some of you guys. I was like, I love this story that I've come up with, and it's really cool, and there's a lot to it, but I don't think I can do it in 6 pages. And then somebody was like, it's 4 pages. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely can't do it in 4 pages. So I was really bummed. And then the panel layouts came out where I was like, I wonder if I could do a montage, and I was pushing against it. And then when I came up with kind of the style that I was doing for this, it solved that problem. And from there, it's been, I don't want to say that it's been easy, but cognitively, it hasn't been like difficult, like process to think out or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good thing you're touching on, which is like a lot of what you're doing as an artist, especially in the previs stage, is just like a lot of just kind of troubleshooting, because you have a vision of what you're trying to communicate. That's usually where you start. It's just figuring out like, what is the goal? Like, what am I trying to communicate?
Yeah.
And then it's just literally trying to figure out the language that you need to use to make it happen, and make sure that the language is reading right, that it's written in the correct direction,
Yeah.
And like, so I think that's one of the fun things about sort of the Pandora's box of comics is like, you kind of have all of these great challenges and restrictions that allow for that kind of problem solving on a level where like I'm excited to hear you mentioning like getting a team for animation, because I think that's why there are so many animation teams. Like you don't see, there's a couple people like my friend Jim Lujan who does like everything and I don't know how. Like I know the guy, and I still am like mystified by how he puts out like these, they're very rough, like limited animations, but they're like really impressive.
Any kind of
everything,
animation.
the music and everything.
Yeah,
everything.
He does everything. He does most of the voices.
Yeah.
He'll have like a friend or two do voices, but he does everything, and it's like that's a really rare breed, like the type of person who can take that on and then continually do it. And I think like for what you're trying to accomplish, I do think having a team is going to help a lot, because I think you want slick and polished stuff. And I think slick and polished in animation, you need a team,
Well, And part of my problem, I mean, this is a bit of a diversion, but because I'm struggling with this, is from like a pride standpoint. I want to do it on my own, and I can. Like
Yeah,
I could do the music, I could do the sound effects, I can do every stage of the style of animation that I'm looking at doing.
of course.
But the problem is that then I would be, that's what I would do, right? And I have, I've got a children's book that I've scripted that I haven't been able to start yet. I've got several comic ideas that I've got on the back burner. And so it's kind of like one of those things like, I'm either not going to do the animation, or I'm going to do the animation at the cost of all of these other projects that I also want to do. Or I'm going to get a team and we are going to do the animation, and I will be able to knock out a couple of books as well. And so it's actually a really significant challenge for me to be able to say, like, because I would just love at the end of this award-winning short film, and of course, in my pride, I'm already imagining that, and that's not going to happen on my first one or my 10th one, obviously, but it could. I mean, it's a possibility, and I'm just thinking like one name in the credits, just like one name rolls by and that's it, and it just says like, short film by Cory Kerr. Like I would love that, if that were the case. But the more I've thought about it, the more I think like I like this story, and I almost want the story to be out there more than my prideful whatever, because it is a really legitimately good story. And if anybody watched parts of my 100 Days of Animation, it's that story that I was working on. I storyboarded it. I've got the boards, I've got the script, I've got about a minute and a half of animatics done. I've got several of the characters rigged. I've nailed down the style. I mean, it's at this point in time, I could knock out the rest of those animatics, and it would be pretty. It'd be pretty cool to just have everybody just kind of follow that, and I think it'd be pretty awesome. And I don't think it would. I mean, it would be time consuming, but it wouldn't be. It would be very clear. You know what I mean? Like I think I can get it to the point where it's very clear. And so, I think I just have to get over myself and just be like, let's get some buddies together. Get some graduates of some of my classes that would like to be involved. I've had people ask, like, hey, can I jump in on that? And I've turned them down, and I'm like, no, I'm going to do it on my own. And anyway, I'm just rethinking that, and I think I'm rethinking it because I would like to get all of the other projects and stories that I want to tell going. Because I mean, animation takes forever. That's going to be like a 5-year project where I don't do anything else, or I could get it done with a team in less than a year.
Yeah, and case in point would be like the story of like the thief and the cobbler, where like this animator dedicated, like 40 years of his life for like 30 minutes of animation, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then, Disney stole it and made Aladdin. But anyhow, it's just it's one of those things of like had he had a team, I mean, it's an amazing feat, but had he had a team, that could have been done in like a year or two.
Yeah.
And you suffer the authorship a little bit, but then you also get the beauty of collaboration, which I think is a huge thing in animation. So I think it just depends on goals and objectives. But the guys I know that, like, there's this other guy named Dominic who does a lot of like completely self-authored animation, and usually it's done in very loose style, because it's just it's insane. It's an insane amount of work.
Yeah.
So it really, I mean, it's possible. I don't doubt that if you did it, it would be beautiful. It would be great. But I agree. I think like, if you had a team on that, then you can focus on making more kids books and stuff like that are like self-authored. And also it's like, it doesn't take away your authorship to kind of have, a team on it.
Yeah,
Especially
I mean,
considering you've done all the previs and stuff, you know?
yeah, I mean, it's my script, it's my vision. You know, but I also, if I'm being honest, there are people out there that I think could jump in that would make the project better than I could do it. So
Yeah.
it's not just finishing. It's like that idea of collaboration, that like there are people that are significantly better than I am. And if they, you know, if they're excited about it, then that would level the project up like nothing else, you know? So that's something to think about as well.
Yeah, yeah, and you get all that talent, and you get different viewpoints, and you get surprises, you know, which is not a bad thing if you embrace it. You know, it's just a different beast.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm saying that, and I'm, you know, working on page 80 something of my self-authored graphic novel. You know, so it's like I also get the other side of the coin. But I think like I think just it's a mindset thing. So it kind of just depends on what your vision is.
Yeah. Cause
But
I mean,
I do like the fact that you mentioned your vision having awards and stuff, because it always, whenever I allow myself to kind of just go off in fantasy world, you know, I'm like, I'll be like, and then I get an Eisner, and then like, you know,
yeah.
there's a really funny short YouTube series that Derek Kim made. And now I am going to blank out on the name of it, but you should just look up Derek Kim comic series on YouTube.
Okay.
I'll mention it in the notes or something. But it is so bloody brilliant, because he's right. It's like a sitcom about a cartoonist, and it starts off with him like daydreaming, like the main character is daydreaming that he's getting, you know, an Eisner, and then like he actually has Scott McCloud in it. So Scott McCloud like stands up in the audience and is like, "You're brilliant!" Like it's a great, it's really good. But anyhow, it's just funny because I think that's a pretty common thing with creatives. Like we do, when you go a little far in the vision, it does get to like kind of fun stuff like that.
Well, because like you're looking for validation, you know, like I'm going to put in thousands or tens of thousands of hours into whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's nice. Like you know, financially it would be cool if it sold, but the thing that I would actually care about is like that there's so many people that liked it, you know? And so like from an award standpoint, like I kind of imagine that situation, because that's kind of a validating thing. Like, hey, I thought this was good and I executed it, and now, you know, some outside forces are validating that it was worth something. It was worth the effort and the sacrifice and whatever. You know, and I may never get that, and that's fine. I don't, you know, I mean, that's not why I do it, but like I'm not gonna turn it down and not show up. You know,
Yeah,
so
exactly. And I do think you're touching on like one of my biggest fears, you know, like as I'm getting closer and closer to wrapping up quarterly stories, I'm like, I think one of my worst fears is being like, here's my project. I've invested maybe like 5 or 6 years of my life on it. And then like having one person go like, you know, like that to me frightens the hell out of me. Like the idea of it just kind of being like, you know, just totally insignificant.
yeah.
Which I think that's a pretty common common fear. I mean, that's one of the fun things about this anthology too, is like, you know, there is kind of a prize at the end of this rainbow, you know, like there is like, I do know after this is done, we'll have a physical book, you know?
Yeah.
But it is funny how, I don't know, do you ever get those things, Scott, where you're just like,
Oh yeah.
what if I invested all this time for not, you know?
Well, for you though, it's a little different because it seems so much more personal because it's your story, you know.
Yeah.
So, at least with me, if it's not successful, it's not like, oh, no one cares about me personally or my story.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's got like the benefit of both, where it's like, you know, if it doesn't do well, I could also just be like, well, you know, that makes sense. It's just about my life. Like, why would, you know, I don't know, because I do think there's a huge risk to fiction too, you know. So I don't know. I am excited about seeing all our finished stuff in the same book. I don't think we've been in the same book.
No, that's cool. I guess I didn't think about that so much, but yeah, that's a good. No.
Yeah.
Now I'm probably gonna want more copies than what we'll get.
Yeah. I don't know. We got to bug Mike. Mike, you're gonna hook us up with all the copies, right? And then we'll just throw them out. Yeah. So like any other kind of insights or kind of things that opened up from this? Like to me, Cory, one of the things that instantly comes to my mind is like your mythology that you've created for this really does seem like fodder for a longer story.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm like, did this open the floodgates of like, oh no, now I've got another another crazy long project that I have to make at some point.
Yeah, I really like short projects. I like projects that I can like knock out in like 6 to 8 months rather than like, okay, so this is what I'm committing to for the next 3 years or whatever. And so like this one, I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but like there's like the Soviets, they started tracking this thing that was kind of an older mythology that the world is broken up into this mystic grid, and that certain parts of the earth were like charged with specific type of energy. And so like because I as a kid I was really fascinated with this idea. I did like a book report on it that that ships would disappear in the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Triangle. And as I was researching it, there's another spot called the Dragon's Triangle, which is over near China. And it's like the polar opposite. Like if you were to draw like a line straight through the globe, then on either side of that line, you'd have the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle. And so that's always been fascinating. So I was taking that, and then as I was researching it, I was looking into it, and I was like, oh, there's a lot to that, because whether it's true or not, there's this giant shape grid that these Soviet scientists believed had extra power. And so I was thinking about like what it would be to be able to do that. And my main reason was I didn't just want to have werewolves and unicorns. I wanted to have as many different mythological creatures as I possibly could. So I was trying to figure out like how can I, incorporate all these things, and I wanted to do like a seafaring tale, because I just got done drawing reading a bunch of stuff about that. So I was like, I want to do that. And so I pieced it all together, and then I now have this like epic global battle between like Kronos's children and the Olympians and resurrected undead characters from classical seafaring books like Joseph Conrad and Herman Melville, and like the Moby Dick characters and all that. And so like in this story, I've resurrected the Pequod, which is the ship that Moby Dick took down with Captain Ahab. And I literally have almost an infinite cast of characters that would align themselves on either side of this conflict, and it can take place all over the world. So every time you change positions on the globe, you could have monsters and creatures and characters that would be from different cultures, and it's kind of like a mythology blending story. And so it literally could go on like BPRD Hellboy style forever, and oh man, I just think yeah, it's really tempting, but I don't know that I have the patience that you have, Josh, where I could be like, yeah, I'm I'm going to commit to do this for multiple years. Cause I mean, like, I just want to put so many things out there that I'd rather not, just do one, I mean, what you're doing is awesome and super impressive. To me, likely a lot because of that, because I just don't know that I have the fortitude to stick with it. I mean, I can do a 40-page hand inked children's book in 6 months. And so far that's been like the extent of my, of how long I've been able to do it. I mean, my first comic I did, that web comic, that took me, I did 60 pages and it took me longer than a year. But I mean, I don't know. The commitment for multiple years kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, it's a scary thing, but there's this part of me that like I want to see that. Like I want to, like when you're describing it, I'm like, oh, I really want. I'm like, I love the short, and I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be one of the stronger, things in the anthology. But at the same time, I'm like, now I want to see that whole world. Like I want to see it built up. I want to see like your like Naruto or like your Last Airbender, like your big epic, but that's kind of my personality. Like I'm always curious to see like what everybody's long form stuff is, because I love long form,
Yeah.
Even Young and the Dead, like I'm so excited about when that whole thing's bound, like because I think there's something to it. Like I don't know what it is. Not with Young and the Dead. I mean, I think it's cool. It's a good comic, so that's one of the things to it. But there's something to just be said for like a big story by like an artist, especially a comic, because it's like there's something about the weight of it and just that long.
That's the original intention of the goal. It just I can't do like you're doing, because I have to make those benchmarks, and that's why I put out the floppies.
Yeah.
But my goal is to have if it wasn't a concern, I'd create a graphic novel. But I mean, I've been working on it for years, so it's like, no, I got to have those single issues before I can compile everything.
But there is something exciting about that, like that point when it gets to that, where it's just a big thick book and it's like your whole vision, imperfect, perfect, whatever it is, it's there. I love that, But
so Scott, when you say you've got to do it in smaller chunks, why is that? I'm curious, because
it's a similar reason. Like I guess I align a little more with you on that. It's just I like smaller projects. I don't know why I keep doing larger projects, but in order, if I'm going to do a larger project, I just have to break it up, or else I probably couldn't see it through.
Yeah,
I get that too, because like I initially, and even in like the final collected like quarterly stories, it's going to be broken up, and initially it was going to be broken up into floppies, so it's like it's going to have covers and stuff for those floppies kind of distributed throughout. But like what's weird is just the math on it. I was like, well, I'm almost there, so I might, because initially I was like, well, I'll get 3 issues in, and then I'm like, well, one more issue, and then I got like a graphic novel. So that, but it is weird, because I have to come up with like mental games to like it's helpful to like break it into chapters. But then I was thinking like, Cory, like what you're describing could be a bunch of short stories, that are just collected. They could be done in like multiple styles.
Yeah.
I'm totally not trying to convince you to take on another beast of a project, because you're already taking on a lot. And then if you're going to take on that animation, like that's, even with a team, that's like we always joke at the NCS that like the only people crazier than cartoonists are animators. Like
right.
It's literally like the only thing that I can think in like the art world that's like more work from what I've experienced than comics, is like, because you're then you got between frames, and I'm like, no, I like my little like just doing keyframes thing. Like that's fun. I don't know about the like the in between frames of hair like flopping or something, like I don't know if I want to do that, but yeah, so like if you're taking on that, that in itself, like doing like a 5-minute animation can be almost as much work as like doing like a hundreds of pages of comics. So I don't know. But I do agree with the idea of like breaking it in chunks, because my brain, if I don't have stopping points or like some kind of point where I can stop and be like, I did it, you know, like I think I'd get really dissuaded, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as Scott was talking, I was thinking like I could totally do this Young and the Dead style, like where, you know, it's not the only thing I do. I work on it alongside, you know, and I put it out over the course of, you know, several other projects.
Yeah.
And it would work that way, you know. I don't know. Maybe I do an entire graphic novel that's built out of like, you know, a bunch of 4 to 6 page stories.
Yeah, and I mean, like those stories will start to make threads that you can then tie into others, you know. So it's like they're all related.
Yeah.
It is kind of like, you know, building, like it's world building, you know. And then if you get really into one, then maybe it is worth like time to do, you know. And if I don't know, or like maybe there's a broader narrative, like which I think you already kind of have.
Yeah,
That just kind of ties all those threads together, you know.
Yeah, there is. I'm not sure if I've said it publicly or not, but it's in the story, so people who will know. But it's basically the reason in my story, the reason that those spots on the globe exist is because when the Olympians beat and buried the male Titans, because the female Titans are still around, they sided with the Olympians. They buried them under the world, but it's not specific where that is. So in my story, they buried them under the ocean, and they've been leaking ichor for centuries, and that's the blood of the gods, right? And so because they're leaking ichor, it's like poisoning that part of the world. And so compasses work, you know, or don't work there, and storms are bigger, and creatures are mutated and giant, and so it's all coming back to that. And the idea is that Ahab, for some reason that I don't want to release publicly yet, has decided that he's going to go out and free specific titans for his own purposes. And so you've got Ahab fighting against the Olympians, who are trying to, you know, keep the titans, and then eventually, like, you know, Kronos's children will come into play against the Olympians, and so you'll have kind of this like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen meets, you know, the Odyssey, you know, meets Godzilla and Pacific Rim, kind of. So yeah, there is kind of an overarching story, but I think there's there's some other like smaller kind of interesting stories that you could tell along the way. I just keep going back to like Magnola with like BPRD. Like, I mean, he's got these big arching stories, but he also has like, you know, here's a story that just happens like one time where, you know, like Hellboy was out to sea, and here's another story one time where he was a kid and he's deciding whether he wants to eat pancakes or not, you know, or whatever. And there's all these like mini stories, and then there's like this big overarching story, but there's like a bunch of characters and government agencies and stuff like that. And I think that type of storytelling is really appealing, because I don't think I would feel like I'm locked into one thing. Like I just have to tell this one story for the rest of eternity. It like builds a world kind of like Terry Pratchett's Discworld, where I can kind of tell whatever stories I want. And I've already set up the rules for that particular kind of world building.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the cool thing is you could even do, like, if you're like, I don't want to do epic fantasy, you could do, like, a slice of life of just some, like, mediocre character who has nothing to do with the overarching plot. They're just, like, a normal person in that world.
Right.
And that in itself would be fascinating. I mean, you could go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
So to me, like, that sounds really interesting. It's funny, I have some, like, weird dystopian story that I want to tell at some point. That I gotta jump on at some point. it's funny how many like weird stories kind of pile up while you're working on stories. It's
Yeah, and Scott in the chat is saying a similar idea happened in the Avengers recently. The rotting titans infected humanity and created mutants or something like that. Jason Aaron rocks. So I'll have to go check that out. One thing that I find fascinating about every time I come up with an idea and I'm like, oh, this is really awesome. I'll go and see a movie and I'll be like, oh, wow, that is exceptionally similar to the the concept that I just had. And I don't know, it just goes back to like, all the stories have been told.
Yeah, that happened to me with like Super 8. I was working on my comic, and then Super 8 came out, which is different because it's aliens, but there was sort of a zombie tie-in because one of the characters is making a zombie movie. So, and even there was like weird little things like I think the name of the city was the same too, or just weird thing or something. And it's just like, how is that? That's really weird and coincidental, but and then Stranger Things, but it's different enough, so.
Yeah, and it's different because it's yours. You know what I mean? Like you're bringing something to the table, and so just in that aspect, it's a different variation.
Yeah, I'm gonna be really disturbed if like somebody puts out quarterly stories and it's like exact because I'll be like, wait, that's my life, dude. Like, what are you?
I don't think you have to worry about that so much, Josh.
Oh, that's my dogs. Yeah, so I don't know. It is interesting though. But I'd love to see you tackle something like that where you can just chip away at it. And it's like, there's a broader arching narrative, but you're able to kind of like Scott was saying, there's tricks to kind of make it not seem so epic. Because I think if you were to go back in time and tell Scott when he was starting issue 1, like how far he is on the story now, he'd be kind of mystified by it because it's not, it kind of builds and then it becomes possible.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it's pretty impossible when you're trying to take on a big story like that, So like I know with quarterly stories, like there've been points where I just have had like absolutely no idea that if I'd actually be able to kind of get it done because it just seemed like such a daunting thing.
Yeah.
But then now I'm kind of at the latter half of like the first book, and I'm like, this is kind of weird because it's actually going to happen, which is a whole different can of worms because then it's like, well, but is it any good? Which is like that whole thing. But yeah, I want to see like all of the people doing this hundreds anthology. I want to see all of them tackle something long form, even if it's just serialized. I think I want to see it, So like Mike, get going on Space Cat.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, on the one hand, I don't know. Recently, I had somebody at work say that no one should go into illustration or graphic design because it's going to be automated. And I was like, I actually think it's the opposite. And so sometimes I think like, there will come a day where we're going to have some sort of plug-in in our mind, and like if I think of a story, I can just like think it out and it won't take me 20 years to draw it because it'll just like create itself or whatever. But then I also think like I kind of like the fact that there's this barrier to entry, where like effort, stops a lot of just anybody coming up with anything.
Yeah.
And I actually don't think that's going to go away. I mean, I do think there's going to be a lot of really interesting things, 10 years from now that will just blow our mind. But I still think like effort and storytelling and humanity are going to be like a significant, part of creativity still.
Yeah, and I think I mean, to me it's like there's something to be said for like when you pick up like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a really weighty graphic novel. Like Berlin by Jason Lutz is a good example. That's just wrapped up. He spent 20 years on that.
Yeah.
When you see that book, it's like it's completely his, and there is something to be said for like the craft of it. Like outside of even the story, it's just it's an impressive thing. It feels like it has more significance and substance. Now that might be artificial or whatever, but it's definitely something I get. You know, I was showing Scott like before we started recording because he was like, "What made you like work so big?" You know, and so I brought out the book from that Masters of American Comics show and was showing him some like, because it shows like the like actual scans of like the original pages that were on display at the museum exhibit. And so it's like, you have like Chris Ware pages, but you see all the blue line underneath. And I actually think there's something so mind blowing about seeing like the pencil and the blue line on the original pages. I almost like it more than like the scanned and cleaned up finished thing. But there's something really weighty about every single artist in that collection, like when they exhibited it. And I think that was a common thread, was like they all were the authors of these crazy projects that they actually did by hand. There is something to be said for that, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's only going to increase because like, why are these pieces of paper on my wall worth anything? You know, like I have them in printed form, and, from a technical standpoint, they look better printed, but like there's something about us as people that we instinctively appreciate and value effort and hard work. And so like when someone recognizes that something exists because of someone's sacrifice, that automatically goes up in value in their mind. Like, it's like, oh, wow, that thing was hard. Now I value it more. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think with automation and a lot of those things that are going to happen, like there will just be other things. If something gets automated, we're still going to appreciate the things that are not automated more. And so, like those pages, when you see that blue line and that red line and those pencils and whatnot, I think the reason that we value that and are impressed by that is because of empathy and humanity. Like we are, we're like hardwired to be impressed by people's sacrifice and by their work.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about some of the things that have happened in the past with art where they've said, oh, this will be automated, this won't exist anymore. Good examples like guitar, like rock and roll.
Yeah.
There's like this period in the late 80s and early 90s where all the hip talk was about how, everyone's going to just play synthesizers. Like, and like the guitar, like, the second they can emulate a guitar effectively, like that's the death of guitar.
Yeah.
But like, I can drive like a block from here to Guitar Center, and guess what it's full of? Guitars. And they're not that different. I mean, most of them are models that were designed in like the 40s or the 30s, some even predating that, like some going back to like models that were designed in the 1600s, and the design hasn't changed. It's weird, right? So to me, I don't think anybody really like at this point, because you can shred better on a MIDI pad, I don't think somebody sees somebody shredding on an electric guitar and it is like, meh, I can do that on a MIDI. I can automate that because there's that rawness to it. There's like the imperfections and like I don't know, there's something really cool about like
the humanity, right? It's the humanity. It's the humanity that's in the mistakes, in the imperfections, and whatnot. So I sketched some in the chats is asking if a mini series counts as a long form project.
Well, that depends, right? Because a mini series in what? Like in comics, a mini series is a lot of drawing. That's a pretty big project, it's funny because it's like I when I was when I went to that DreamWorks thing, one of the cartoonists there that I really admire was like actually like, dude, you're always plugging out pages, like you're just a machine. How big's your book gonna be? And I like embarrassed, like I felt embarrassed to say that it was like probably gonna be maybe 100. But that's because like I know people who put out like 500-page comics, you know. So it's like, to me, it's like it's a perspective thing where it's like you could call what I'm doing like a little mini comic. It's not like blankets length, you know. It's not Habibi. It's not like a mouse, you know. So it's like what I guess it just depends on what you call a mini series, right? Because is a mini series going to be like 3 or 4 issues?
Well, yeah, isn't it technically kind of like a mini series just means that you know when that series is going to end as opposed to an
Yeah, fair
ongoing
point.
series?
Yeah, you have a planned ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, then, right?
Because like, you know, Crisis on Infinite Earths was 12-issue miniseries, but which is 12 issues to compile that. That's a fairly decent sized story, but they knew the ending, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more recent examples, but I'm old.
But yeah, no, like I think that's a good point. And like, wouldn't you consider like Watchmen a mini series?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, Watchmen's.
You know, but it's also considered one of the most substantial graphic novels ever made. So I think that might kind of count.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't think about that today, right? You don't think of like Preacher and Watchmen and, you know, like that type of stuff today as miniseries. But that's what they were at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, I would say and this just goes back to what we were already talking about. Anything that takes longer than a year to produce, I'd say that's pretty dang long form. in my mind, just I don't know. I just feel like I have limited time on this planet, and whatever choice I make is an opportunity cost of another thing that I'm not going to be able to produce.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, like I think that's part of why I've really hunkered down and focused so much on one thing, because I found that like, you know, 10 or so years had gone by since I had really tackled something that I felt was substantial, that I like could be really proud of.
Yeah.
And I just put out a ton of illustrations, and I had like illustrated books and done all sorts of stuff, but none of it made me feel as good as like the first comic where I just put all my guns into it. And so it's like, I think in a weird way, it's because of that. Because I'm like, I have limited time, so I want to build something, you know, thick and substantial, as ridiculous as that is. Because I'm like, otherwise I'm just doing one-off illustrations, and I love one-off illustrations.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to see that big thing, you know. And I think it's also because that's the stuff I enjoy, you know.
I've got to stop talking to you about this because you're going to talk me into this thing.
I am. And then you're going to do that on top of Sticker Stint, on top of directing a movie. And why do a short, Corey? Why not just make a fully animated feature film?
Josh, we're not going to be friends anymore pretty soon here because I can't afford it from a time standpoint. No, I know what you mean. Like I completely agree with that. That's like a sound argument, you know, like I love stickers. They're awesome. And I love being able to communicate a message or a story in a single image and be able to get people to think about something because they see something on a water bottle or a laptop or a telephone pole. There's a purity to that I think is lost in a lot of situations. But at the same time, like, you know, fast forward 50 years, if all I've done is short things and, you know, thousands of stickers, that would be a waste.
Well, but would it? Because, like, you know, meanwhile, I'm talking and I'm wearing like an I Heart New York shirt, and that thing's pretty timeless, you know. So
yeah,
it's like, you know, it's kind of to each their own, you know. Like painters, you know, spend a long time on like one painting, but they make paintings. They're like single images. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's not necessarily, you know, that like books are timeless. It's just more of like a preference thing. Like, and to me, whenever you talk comics, I get the vibe of like, you're a long form guy. See, I'm trying to work on you. I'm trying to get you to do that long story. But I don't know. Is that just me, Scott? Like, do you kind of get that with cartoonists where you have like friends who they do like short stuff and you're like, I want to see the long thing. Like, I want to see the big, like their big vision, like come to fruition. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like I just want to see stuff from my friends,
Yeah.
and continuous stuff, whether it's a continuing story or just more individual stories.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I mean, I might be the opposite actually, because I might just want to see what different stuff. Like I would love to see, and that's kind of what's cool about what you're doing now with the 100 anthology is I get to see something a little different from you.
yeah.
Because I see what you're doing with quarterly stories, so it's kind of nice to that's okay. He's doing something different here. So personally for me, I like to see, I guess, different stuff.
The
See
variety.
what else? Yeah.
All right.
Amen,
Well,
man. Amen.
I think it's getting pretty late. We've killed this.
Yeah.
Cory, we got to do this again, but
Yeah, it's too bad we couldn't have all three of us in the same place.
we
That
got to
would've been
figure
really
out how to unite.
cool. Yeah.
How to
Hey, well, I'll
unite
tell you what,
the
I've got enough room up here. So sometime when you're too hot in the nice weather, you're welcome to jump up here and freeze to death in the winter.
I love it.
Yeah.
Just kind of have to somehow get through the snow into your house, like through the pile of. How is it still snowing?
No, it's actually been raining for the last couple of days. It's been 33, so everything's been melting.
Jeez.
Oh man, unbelievable. But then like you can make me weep by just mentioning the housing costs. So
My buddy just bought a 3,000 square foot house for $225,000.
okay, so let's see. Why am I in LA again? I love it.
Because you don't own a snowplow, like you haven't been like I actually walked across the street with my snowblower, which is like a lawnmower size snow machine. And I was talking to my neighbor as I was helping him like clear out his driveway so he could get into his house. And we were seriously considering going in on an actual snowplow together. Like, we should just get like a neighborhood snowplow. And I'm like, this is a conversation that I have never ever thought that I would ever have in my life. It's pretty strange.
Oh man, I love it though. That's exciting. So so like I will say like one of the cool things, and this is just kind of sentimental and cheesy, but one of the fun things about doing these two projects like the Artcasters and Art Check is like having these sincere friends where it's like Scott and I've met maybe once before in person, but it's like when Scott's over here, I don't feel like I have to like be like on host mode or like it's like, oh, my buddy's here. Like I actually know you guys pretty well, and it's been kind of fun to like have that kind of build and like it can build without like states being kind of preventing that kind of thing. So that's kind of rad.
Yeah, it's weird because when I just arrived, it's just like, oh yeah. Like we see each other all the time, even though physically we don't. But,
I know,
but we do it away. So it's really cool.
And it's always similarly like even the like the gang we've got built up in the chats. It's like the most exciting. It literally just is a super cool community. So thanks you guys for joining us in the chats and stuff. Is there anything we haven't touched from the chats before we kind of close out?
Oh man, there's so much. I've done a really bad job of keeping track of the chats, but
did we get a decent amount of people in there, Cory? Because I know it's kind of a different day and everything. So.
No, there's a ton of people, and like it was really cool because like everybody knows each other, and as people are showing up, they're like greeting each other and stuff. It was really fun to watch that. They're all super interested in each other's projects and whatever. I sketched and did mention when I was talking about wanting to be the only person on the movie credits. It was a really good joke, and I just couldn't work it in. But I wanted to go back to it because he was saying that it would have to be my name on the screen for 3 minutes so that the song could finish during the credits. Super slow scrolling thing. Anyway, I thought that was pretty good. But yeah, it was a super active chat. Peter saying he'd love to get involved in a team for animation, and anyway, there's all kinds of cool stuff going on. So yeah, it was good. So if you're watching this later, make sure you read the chat because there's like a whole another thing going on over there.
I love it. If you guys are out there and you're in the hundreds anthology, we're still planning on continuing and having guests who are cartoonists that are going to be in book number 2. So if you guys haven't been on Artcasters yet, like reach out to Scott for next week. Reach out to me for the week after. If you can't do it in the next few weeks, still reach out, and we'll try to kind of get you booked in because we want to promote this as much as possible so it just has like the best chance of like ultimate success at the end. Plus, it's like super fun to meet everybody in the hundreds. So it's been really fun so far.
Good way to promote your work and everything too. If you haven't done a lot of like stuff on video and everything too. So. And
how much is that promotion going to cost them? I'm just curious.
That's free too.
It's like, free. He's lost his mind.
Everything's free with me.
Reach out.
It's a night's sleep. That's what it costs you.
Yeah.
Well, some people I know it's hard for, but
yeah,
it's weird for me because it's an hour earlier now. So for me,
yeah, that time change is going to be fascinating. All right, cool. So thanks for everybody who joined us, and we'll just sign out by telling people where to find us. So you're on my channel, you know where to find me. If you haven't, hit subscribe, hit the bell. It'll warn you when I'm about to go live, and or when we're doing an art check. If that bell doesn't work, Scott's going to kind of get into some other methods to be able to follow our bouncing show. But before that, just check me out on Quarterly Stories. And it is late, so I'm starting to zone. And then Cory, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so go to corykerr.com. That's where you can find me, CoryKerr.com. And also I want to plug everybody who's doing the sticker stint. If you look up the hashtag sticker stint, there is some really cool stuff, and like 3 or 4 people in the chat have been active in that, and at least 2 of them that I saw have done it every day and haven't missed a day. And so go check out that hashtag on Twitter, and mostly Instagram is where I'm seeing most people post. And it's just really cool. I mean, it is a difficult challenge to do to start and finish something every single day on top of your comics and your animations and your movies and your work and your family and all that stuff. And so the people that have stuck around and done that every day, legit stuff coming out of that. And that's really cool. So go check that out. And I will be doing a video on my YouTube channel tomorrow, maybe the next day, on like a big recap of the coolest stuff that I saw. So stay tuned for that, and go check those guys out as well.
I love it. All right, and then Scott, other than right here, where can I find you after you head back to Arizona?
Yeah, you can find me at circworks.com, and once again, if you go there, you can pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's free. You just join my mailing list. Relatively simple process, and you will get tons of digital tools for making comics, and like I said before, stuff that you can also print out, templates and things if you work traditionally, but brushes, fonts, templates, all kinds of cool stuff, and it's all free. And like Josh was mentioning before, if you want to know where to find us, because we switch back and forth from my channel to Josh's channel, and typically we do it on a Thursday, but then sometimes, like today, it just worked out that we want to do Wednesday, so I could be here in the same room and everything. But you might not have known that if you weren't subscribed to the mailing list. So that's something you might want to do, because we'll send out a newsletter. We don't spam you or anything. We just let you know about 30 minutes ahead of time when we're going to go live. And yeah, so sign up for the mailing list. You can do that. There's a link in the description of this video.
Sweet. All right. Well, we will see you guys next week. Bye.
See ya.
Later.